I can't believe we've gone this far, and we do have a couple minutes left if you guys can hang around, because I didn't even bring up, we dived into that defense for so long, this number 4 ranking from the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Tony, you smiled first.
Well, I'll just say this. I was pre-writing the story, and I had Ohio State, College Football Playoff ranks Ohio State number 3 in initial poll, and that's where they should have been. And then you get to, they're revealing it, and they get to the top 6, and they're like, well, we've been told we have to reveal it this way for drama. And you're like, why is there drama in the top 4, top 5? And then you get to thinking, well, that's because they're going to put Clemson ahead of Ohio State because, I don't know, because as Gary Barta said, Clemson has dominated every game they've played except for the one they lost, which is actually not true because they didn't dominate Syracuse. They didn't dominate Boston College. And Tom Moore and I did a podcast about this last night, and it's like, yes, don't get angry about it because it's meaningless. But what does get me angry is just the lying, the choose your own adventure way of saying, well, this is why we like this team. This is why we like this team. Why did they like Georgia? We like the win over Auburn. And, because there's nothing else to like. And really, if you like the win over Auburn, you probably think like rice is the tastiest food out there. And so, yeah, it doesn't mean anything right now, but having Ohio State, who is undefeated, it also shows me that even though they have Indiana ranked 12th, they don't believe Indiana's a 12th or 11th ranked team, whatever they have. They don't actually think they're that good, or else they wouldn't punish Ohio State for only beating them by 7.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, you're on mute again. Go ahead. I was just going to sit there and say it felt like that the trophies were already engraved, and they just didn't want to. We already got them done. I mean, we're not going to do this. So I mean, it's so dishonest. Seriously, they go in, they already have their preconceived notions or whatnot. You know what? Right now, if you roll out Ohio State and Clemson on a neutral field, I'm not really liking Ohio State coming off of the Indiana game based on where the defense is. But as I put on social media, let's not forget, a top 10 loss will always mean more than a top 10 win.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm ambivalent. I'm like, the first rankings don't mean much, and there's a lot of football left to be played. And if Northwestern somehow runs the table and gets undefeated to Indianapolis, then that'd be a quality win. And they did give Northwestern some proper credit, put them in at number 9, I think, or whatever it was. So I agree. Indiana got I think they're behind both Georgia and Oklahoma, who have 2 losses. So, Oklahoma to me, they are doing a good job of redeeming themselves here in the second half of the season. And, that was a good win for them over Oklahoma State, so to speak. But the Big 12 is really not in this discussion and whatever. I feel bad. I think for BYU, I think they should be a little higher up if you're basing it on eye test. Have they played a Power 5 team or a good Power 5 team? Probably not. But still, to dominate the teams that they played the way that they have, a Houston, a Navy, or, some of these other ones that they've played and played pretty well against. Boise State, they went in there and dominated them. They're usually a top 20 team. So, they deserve some credit and probably a little bit more. Maybe I've got them a little higher in my poll. I don't know. As I said, it's going to come out in the wash. And Ohio State's best thing they can do is just keep winning, and it all takes care of itself, and they'll be in. Do they have a realistic shot at number 1? Probably not. And, if Alabama wins out, certainly. And again, some of this is subconscious that one team has played 4 games and another team has played 8. That's just the way it is. And I don't know. When you play a game, you also put yourself at risk. And I think, Clemson, to their credit, at least has come through most of these games unscathed. I mean, obviously they lose to Notre Dame with the star by it because Lawrence didn't play. Now the guy that did play threw for 400 yards. Was Lawrence going to make that big of a difference? I don't know, but their defense couldn't stop Notre Dame is what it looked like to me. So, and that has nothing to do with Lawrence or ukulele or anything else. So, I don't know. I'm just of a mind right now that it is what it is, and who cares? And they give Texas A&M a lot of credit. They really haven't done a whole lot. Florida to me has been pretty impressive at times, but so I don't know. They're very SEC happy. Let's just put it that way.
I think BYU also got the report coming out that they were ducking Washington didn't help them in this one, and I think maybe they were punished a little bit for that. And my other thing that I like, what Gary Barta said about Oklahoma was we really like their last 5 games. It's like, well, how do you feel about their 2 losses before that? The 2 losses in a row, one to a Kansas State team that is like 4-3. How do you feel about that one right now? And now we just like the last 5. That's what we're really looking at.
Well, I could sit here for the next hour, but I've already sat here for hours railing on, and I didn't think I would have much to rail on because I typically defend them to a certain extent just because it's a difficult assignment. And then the final assignment's extremely difficult because you've got 5 conferences or 10, depending on how you do the math, and you've got 4 slots. But I will say I'm no Clemson apologist, but I will state that in addition to not having Trevor Lawrence, and as Steve pointed out, the backup quarterback, I haven't said his name in weeks, Uiagalelei. Yes, he did throw for 439, and I don't think that there was any drop-off. There was a slight drop-off there. I think that could be evaluated that way. But they were missing 3 defensive starters, their best defensive lineman, their best linebacker, who's an All-American, James Skalski, in that game. So that's taken into consideration as well. Actually, I've got Ohio State ranked a lot lower. I've got Ohio State ranked number 8 in the country, and this is why. I believe in resume, and do I think Ohio State's the 8th best team? So you can approach this so many ways. So as Tony alluded to, are you ranking the 25 best teams in the country as you believe that they stand right this second, meaning the importance of each game gets ramped up as you play the season? So you're not taking just a resume to say week 1's as important as week 6, as week 9. You're basically saying, I think, as in Oklahoma's case, that they have improved and improved and improved. Therefore, I'm ranking them 11th. But if you take the entirety of the season, I've got them like 20th because they haven't put down the 11th best resume in the country. But it could be argued that they're the 11th best team right now. Iowa State's at 13. Oklahoma State's at, what's that, Kevin?
The Big Ten's conference pretty much on the whole is garbage. Ohio State can't. They're playing Illinois, Michigan State, and Michigan, and with deference to Tony and his belief that that Jesus Christ himself is playing for them, they're not going to gain a lot of points by playing those 3 tomato cans.
Well, I think coming into the season that Ohio State had arguably the best team in the country. After watching them play and knowing some of the concerns, I still think that they're the 3rd or 4th best team in the country. But I've got them ranked on a resume. And yes, they can't help that the teams that they've played are 6-14. But I just find I could go on and on. I'll just stay with I was starting the Iowa State, Oklahoma State comparison. Iowa State's at 13. Oklahoma State's at 23. They have the same record. They play in the same conference. So therefore, all but one game was exactly the same. They've played the same teams, and Oklahoma State won the head-to-head against Iowa State. They actually beat a lot of the committee's inconsistencies are almost amusing because they push some teams into the rankings that actually contradict what they did elsewhere. So in this case, they're ranking Tulsa, which adds a quality win to Oklahoma State's resume out of conference, and they're ranking a team with the same record 10 spots behind, and Oklahoma State has no egregious losses, so that makes no sense. Northwestern, I guarantee you that if that was any other team in the Big Ten, practically, that they would be ranked a lot higher. And it was to my surprise that the committee ranked Iowa, which I have no issue with. They ranked Iowa So that should be more to Northwestern's credit. And look at Purdue. Purdue lost on a horrible call last week. They would have been 3-1. Well, Purdue beat Iowa. If you give Purdue that 3-1 record, where do they rank Purdue? Like 15th in the nation? And Northwestern beat all those teams, and they're undefeated. So they're sitting at 8. Wisconsin's at 16, which, again, I'm trying to separate. Do I believe Wisconsin's one of the 15 best teams in the country? I do. I don't have them ranked right now because it's only two wins. They'll get themselves back in there in my rankings, but they're at 16. Northwestern's at 8. If you would have flipped that score from last week, Northwestern would be, even at 4-1 versus Wisconsin's 3-0, Northwestern would be out of sight, and Wisconsin would be that 8 versus 16. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's why I said they don't believe that Indiana is that good. They don't believe Northwestern is that good. They're forced to put these teams there, even though they don't actually think they're that good, and you can't get credit for beating them in those spots because, yeah, they may be the 8th team, but once they lose, they're going to be, down to the 17th, and then you've only beaten the 17th ranked team.
It's all about getting Georgia up there. They're in love with Georgia every year. It's all about getting Georgia up there.
It is weird. They do love Georgia no matter what.
Well, Georgia did lose to 2 of the best teams in the country. Now, Florida blew their doors off for the most part. Alabama did in the last 10 minutes of the game, but that was a great game until about 10 minutes left in the game when they lost to Alabama.
I mean, they were starting a youth mannequin at quarterback for most of the season. I mean, they finally have the right guy out there. I mean, again, it's got to be based on the totality of the season and those craptacular, whatever happens with there, you have to still, it all still has to be in there. I don't think you can just sit there and put it on trends or whatnot, but it really feels like the committee. And this is all really only the first data point we have from this committee, but I'm going to assume they're going to be like every other one, that they're just based on trends and that they're going to sit there and contradict themselves time and time and time again and just get ready for a 2 loss Georgia to be still one of the last teams standing come December 20th when the final rankings come out, because it just reeks of that.
Well, they've got about 5 or 6 pillars that they lean on, but they just switch it up depending on the team and the situation or the comparison. So if they just want to go with what they consider to be the best teams, then if we rewrite history, they need to throw Ohio State in there in 2015, and they need to make some other adjustments of revisionist history. So, yeah, I again, to Steve's point, they overrate the SEC. And when I say overrate the SEC, it's an assumption made because there's no way to rate anybody aside from the Big 12 going out with 2 of its better teams, losing to Sunbelt teams, that should be a mark against the Big 12. Everybody else is neutral. They should be rated as neutral because they're only playing within their league. In the seasons in which the SEC go out there and kill everybody non-conference and win those big non-conference matchups, credit them. Absolutely, they did it. But we can't assume that this is 2017 or 2018. It's 2020. And these teams have to be evaluated against their conference, not against some assumption of how good they are.
It'll be interesting to see if Georgia rises, even though they only have games against South Carolina and Vanderbilt.